With that, I would like to announce our own Matthew Owen, who is going to present to you our program. Oh, there's one thing while he's coming up. We had two of these mics, and unfortunately one wasn't working, so we have one. So I will try to help ferry it back and forth. So if you're the one that's being called, please raise your hand or something so I know where I'm headed to, and that might speed things along a little bit. The other thing I'd like to point out is at Rotary, we honor a 4-way test, and we would hope that all of your answers would meet that 4-way test here at Rotary. That is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? And will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So, all right. With that, Matthew.
Thank you for all being here today. We have one last candidate showing up. First, I'd like to make two quick announcements. There's been two changes this year in case no one's following the local politics scene. Our current Congressman Michael Thompson has been redistricted out of our district, and we have a new district called the California 2nd. So Congressman Thompson no longer lives in our district. Congressman Thompson no longer votes in our district. Second thing is we now have something called open primary, which we voted on recently. All state and federal offices, regardless of whether you get 50% plus one, the top two vote getters go on in November. So for all state elections, state assembly, state senator, Congress, U.S. senator, etc., even if you get 90% of the vote, whoever's in second place goes on in November with you. Because of this, we now have 12 people running for California Congress. If you've got your sample ballots in the mail, you'll notice 12 names. I think there's 22 names running for Senate, United States Senator, 22 names. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be quick here. As always, we'd like to thank the League of Women Voters here. The format's going to be a 1-minute opening. They're taking questions from the audience. We should have time for probably about 4 questions, 1-minute answers, and then 1-minute close. Thank you to all the candidates who have come forth and run for office. It's a tough thing to do, and thank you for doing it. And with that, I'm turning it over to Beth with the League of Women Voters. Thank you. I'm also supposed to announce there's index cards on your table. If you'd like to write a question out and pass it in to the League will have people going around picking them up. They will be picking, I'm going to be going around picking them up and handing back to the League. They will pick the questions out. Thank you again.
Who wants to? Never mind.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me out there? All right. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages the informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Candidate forums are part of our citizen education program, and we are pleased to moderate today's forum for United States Representative Congressional District 2. Please refrain from any demonstrations of support or opposition during the forum. We will thank the candidates with our applause at the end of the forum. Today we have with us Susan Adams, Andy Caffrey, Brooke Clarke, William Courtney, Mary Fritzlan, Michael Halliwell, Stacey Lawson, John Lewallen, Tiffany Renee, and Norman Solomon. Assemblyman Jerry Huffman was unable to participate today because the legislature is in session and he is in Sacramento fulfilling his legislative duties. And Dan Roberts has a scheduling conflict. You all know the format, and so since we have a lot of candidates here, I'd like to get started. Today with us, lead volunteers are Carol Masterson, she's going to be keeping time, and we also have questions, orders, Nan Weaver, and Beth Post. Just a reminder, if you haven't done so, please turn your cell phone off. You've already remembered that. And so the candidates have drawn lots to determine which candidate will have the first opportunity to answer the first question. So please, there are cards going around. Please write one question per card and pass it to the usher to collect. If the candidates are ready, we will start with the first question. And Andy Caffrey, welcome. And you have the first question. The question is, please. Are we opening? Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We will start with opening statements. I'm very sorry. Andy Caffrey, your opening statement.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm the Humboldt kid. I live in Garberville. I'm the only one of the candidates who does live up here. 8 of the candidates live in what I consider the Bay Area. I think they would probably call themselves Bay Area people too. But the reason I'm running is because we are in trouble. During the Vietnam War, Richard Nixon and LBJ sent our boys off to Vietnam where 55,000 died. Afterward, more than that died from suicide, and millions were killed in Vietnam. And the parents did not bother, for the most part, to pick up a book on Vietnam or pick up a book on our history. We're doing the same thing with the climate crisis right now. In 1990, the EPA, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the Woods Hole Research Center said we had to reduce our emissions 50 to 80% by 2000 or 2005. We haven't done it. So now, President Obama says we can take until 2050. We can't. What we have to do is declare a national climate emergency and get off fossil fuels and nuclear as fast as possible. I'm the only candidate up here who can tell you how much we have to reduce our emissions and how fast.
Thank you. Brooke, Clarke, your opening statement, please.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, please stand up.
Oh.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me. About a year ago, I made a discovery, and based on the discovery, I made a webpage called End Two-Party Government. 2 is a digit. And the discovery I made was that the Republicans and the Democrats agree on the major issues. And by major issues, I mean war, the economy, health care, sustainability, the environment. And as we go on today, I'll show you examples of how that works. But what it means is, if you vote for a Republican or a Democrat, you're voting for the status quo. And so that's not a good thing. And Obama taught us that in spades. I voted for Obama wanting change, and I got Bush 44. You know, it's just continuation of the prior administration. So, the key thing is, Republicans and Democrats are the same. The second thing that you need to understand, that it's taken me a while to figure this out, the problems we're having aren't random. They didn't happen like the weather. The problems we're having are caused by politicians making laws. Thank you.
Tiffany, Renee, your opening statement, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm Tiffany Renee. I'm the Petaluma Vice Mayor. I've been serving in Sonoma County for the last 20+ years on community issues like domestic violence and electing women to local offices. And we've recently got involved in our Grange because we have such a great agricultural movement in the area. I have been serving on numerous boards and committees throughout the region, including the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, the Golden Gate Bridge District, and recently, like I said, have co-founded the Petaluma Grange. I am very interested in transportation issues, transit, and serving the rural community. I have gotten to know this area and I'm really interested in meeting with service organizations to help meet the needs of this new district. Being in local government, we've seen many great challenges, and I have the experience and the wherewithal to be able to help this new district meet its needs in Congress. Thank you.
Michael Halliwell, your opening statement, please.
I'm a retired college professor, and I have a distinctly future-oriented perspective from watching over my students and watching what happens to them in life. I am, in fact, a Teddy Roosevelt-type conservationist. I believe in local control. I am the only candidate among the 12 who respects the mandate of the Emerald Triangle against marijuana legalization. We need a park-centered, tourist-based economy in the North Coast. The unemployment rates are higher up here than in the rest of the district, and that is because of some of the adverse effects, public relations and otherwise, of illegal marijuana and the runoff from that. But more important, I believe that we should preserve our heritage we received from prior generations and pass it on to the future. And I believe this is the legitimate role of government, and to make the parks self-sufficient and don't get them caught up in the Sacramento budget squeeze.
William Courtney, your opening statement, please.
Isn't the truth is a good first test? And the commissioner who did the 9/11 commission says he was lied to. This is an amazing book. It dovetails with the recent architects and engineers around the world who have come together and said that airplane did not bring down that tower. We have lost all of our civil liberties over the last 10 years with the Patriot Act, Homeland Security, the Military Commissions Act, the National Defense Authorization, strip search, anti-protest. I want all of those rescinded. I want an investigation. I want someone charged with the authority to find out what actually happened there. We need the truth there. The rest of the world is more aware of it than we are, and they're really hoping that we can pull it together and decide what happened and correct it, because if we don't, we're going to continue down this loss of civil liberties, and they will not come back. We're not going to give them back. We all live in, at least 2/3 of Americans live in a constitutional free zone within 100 miles of the border. They don't need a judge's order for search and seizure. We need your attention.
Susan Adams, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you, Rotarians, for inviting the Traveling Family Circus to your lunch meeting today. We've been moving up and down the corridor, getting in front of really good people to debate the issues. And what you'll find is that there's a lot of similarities in the things that we're saying in terms of getting out of the war, a health system that doesn't leave people bankrupt, clean air, clean water, and addressing the issues that are important to local communities. What's different is the lens that we bring. And I've been a nurse for 33 years. I've delivered babies for a living. I've helped bring people into the world, and I've helped when people have been leaving the world. And I think that kind of grounded, healing approach has served me well in my 10 years on the Marin County Board of Supervisors, where I brought a healthy planet, healthy communities approach to my policies. We've created a health and wellness campus. We have a mentally ill offenders program that's emptying our jails and putting people to work and giving them the treatment that they need, reducing their recidivism by 85%. And I hope that you'll want to bring me to Washington for that pragmatic approach to
Larry Fritzlan, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting. Sometimes I call us the Dirty Dozen as we go up and down the coast. I'm a centrist. I'm a registered Democrat, but I believe in common sense approaches. I think that we need a healthy Democrat and a healthy Republican Party, and we need to sit down and work things out. Why do 91% of us distrust Congress right now? I think if all of us sat down and had a cup of coffee, we would agree that there's big problems in Washington. I see it's the money in politics, and my core position is that we have to get the money out of politics. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I know what dysfunctional families are, and I think we all can agree that what's going on back there is really dysfunctional, and the reason is that I believe it's unethical to accept money from those we regulate or legislate. I think almost everybody agrees with that. The problem is none of the candidates up here are really using the C word. I will talk about corruption. I will talk about corruption on both sides of the aisle and how we need to address that directly. Thank you.
Stacey Lawson, your opening statement, please.
Thank you to the Rotary Club and the League of Women Voters. My name is Stacey Lawson. I'm running to be your next Congresswoman. And as someone who's spent over 20 years in economic development, both starting 24 or more small businesses, and as an educator at UC Berkeley, where I teach entrepreneurship and innovation in small business, I think our #1 issue is the economy. We have to have a recovering economy. We have to have the kinds of jobs we need here in our local communities, and we need the kinds of high-wage, middle-class jobs that take care of our kids, allow us to buy homes, put our kids through college, and have secure retirement. So we have been focused on those issues in this race, and we put together a plan called Making More in America. How do we bring back more manufacturing to our shores? How do we make sure we're investing in things like clean energy and renewables? How do we make sure we have a thriving small business landscape? And because of that lens, we've got the endorsement of the North Coast Young Democrats and all of the farm bureaus up and down the coast, and a number of other of your local and elected officials. So very thankful to be here, and we look forward to your support.
Thank you. Norman Solomon, your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm Norman Solomon. It's been such an honor to be part of this process as a candidate, including being here today. I grew up in a League of Women Voters household where voting is sacred and the democratic process is sacred. The last 2 weeks, time and again, I've been asked by people up and down the district along the coast, please find out why the same candidate who's doing so many TV ads up and down the district didn't vote in most of the elections for 5 years, including November 2008, that historic one. So it's an opportunity for me to say that I hope during this forum that Stacey Lawson will answer that question. I grew up in a household where voting is absolutely prerequisite for the democratic process, and I think it's a legitimate question, and we should have an answer. What we have an opportunity to do is revitalize our economy by revitalizing our democratic process from the grassroots. We don't want our elected positions bought. We want a discourse and a chance to hear each other and listen to each other. That's our hope. Thank you.
Thank you. John Lewallen, your opening statement, please.
Hi, I'm John Lewallen. It's great to be here with you. I'm a businessman from Mendocino County. I'm also a commercial fisherman. My fishery is wild seaweed. I'm a seaweed harvester. I'm an environmentalist. I'm compelled to get into this congressional thing because I think we need unity for fundamental reform. I'm an independent, no political party. I want to talk with you and with all of the right, center, and left factions and see if we can get out of these trends that we have. I see the warfare that is spreading around the world is leading to depression, cleaning our economy out. We have got to go for peace conversion. That's the theme of my campaign. I'm particularly concerned to rebuild the fishing communities in Northern California. I believe we need major federal changes in the Magnuson Act, and that's something I'm very committed to, both as a commercial fisherman and as a legislator.
Thank you. And the first question will go to Susan Adams. Please explain why you do or do not believe that the federal government should ensure that every American has health coverage.
I love this question because I've been working on health policy for the 33 years I've been in nursing. And we already have a single payer system in this country. It's called Medicare. The problem with Medicare is that it's a pool for the sickest, oldest, and most infirmed in our country. And when we don't take advantage of the whole pool, this is part of the challenge. We currently spend 2 to 5 times more money on our health care, and we have 50 million people that have not been covered. We have countries that provide universal health care where they live 4 to 5 years longer than we do. We have great technology in this country, but any of you that understand, and I know you all do, the challenges that we face in rural communities, especially with access to health care, and with the #1 reason for bankruptcy being somebody gets sick and doesn't have the coverage, I think that you'll find pretty much a number of us agreeing that we need to move toward a single payer system, and I'm the gal for that job.
Thank you. The same question goes to Norman Solomon.
As so often, I'm in accord with Susan Adams on this. I had the honor of co-chairing for several years now the National Healthcare Not Warfare campaign with Donna Smith from the California Nurses Association and Congressman John Conyers, who has endorsed me in this race for Congress. Congressman Conyers is the main sponsor of H.R. 676, the single-payer healthcare bill in Congress, which would essentially give us enhanced Medicare for all. Whether it's a child, an infant, a teenager, somebody my age, or an elderly person, well, I'm getting toward elderly, but of any age. Healthcare is a human right. I don't want to see people in emergency rooms who don't need to be there except that they didn't have access to primary care. My wife is a family nurse practitioner. I live in a rural area on Tamales Bay. I know that we need to support, with more federal long-term funding, clinics like Open Door. They are saving lives. They are improving the quality of lives. We must support them with federal funds, big for the long term.
The same question goes to Michael Halliwell.
Healthcare is not a right. Healthcare is a war against disease and disability where we have to unite as best we can against the common foe. It's not something we owe to each other. It's something we must work together to achieve. I believe in making the subsidies more equitable, cutting back on the Cadillac plan subsidies, and shifting that to the working poor so that everybody gets to the point where they only have to pay 10% of their income for their health insurance, and then they get to choose by purchasing across state lines what they want to meet their own needs. Obamacare has a compulsory individual mandate primarily to gouge young people by charging them 3 times as much as their actual risks are. And that basically is necessary because of pre-existing conditions. But if you start when people are young and most are healthy, you don't have this problem. And so we need to repeal and replace Obamacare and have more options for individuals, and we can't have Medicare for all. That will destroy the existing Medicare.
Stacey Lawson, same question.
Thank you. So I do believe that we actually, as one of the few industrialized countries that does not provide universal health care, we need to do that for all of our citizens. The challenge that we have in our current healthcare environment is an insurance system that actually incents less care for more cost. We have a very costly environment. And we need to be moving towards a single payer system that actually addresses the issue of our broken insurance system and provides affordable care for all citizens, regardless of their current coverage levels. So as a daughter of my mom is the public health care, she runs she runs the health officers for the state of California. My grandmother was a nurse. This is an issue that I think is very near and dear to my heart and to my family's heart, and one that I think the Affordable Care Act takes the first step in ensuring 32 million more Americans, but we need to go further to a single payer system, and I think you'll probably hear that widely on this panel.
Andy Caffrey, same question.
Brooke's not quite right. I'm an independent green, although I am registered Democratic now. So if you vote for me, you're not voting for a status quo Democrat or Republican. In fact, I'm giving Democrats, Republicans, and independents a chance to vote truly green. And if you elect me, you're sending a mandate for this new Green America agenda. And that's what's relevant here. Fight the climate crisis is threat number 1. Get off fossil fuels and nuclear as fast as possible. To do this, we have to rebuild our infrastructure around bioregions and sustainability to meet our needs as close to home as possible. And we do that by taxing the rich, because in the last 30 years, the top 1% have gone from owning 8% of the national wealth to 23% of the national wealth. We've gone here in our district from having 40 machine shops in our high schools down to 4. Okay, they've been cutting enough. So what we can do is we can decide that not just police, not just fire, not just our troops are free, but we decide that we want free education for our kids. We want health care for everyone. I work with the homeless. I've saved a couple of homeless veterans' lives down in Garberville by creating a homeless shelter out of nothing, just using community radio and a couple of my church lady friends. So that's what's new.
Thank you. John Lewallen, same question.
Which question was that?
Okay, it's on healthcare.
Yeah. Hi, I'm John Lewallen. Keeping with the Rotarian idea that I'm supposed to speak the truth, we really need a single-payer healthcare system in this country. The system we have is sadistic. People are talking all up and down the district about how bad it is. The only way we'll get it is with a mass movement of the people demanding it, an organized movement. That is the only way we're going to get this system that we really need and get out of this sadistic nightmare we're in. So everybody should go to singlepayernow.net and join the movement. And also, we need to cut back all of this endlessly growing military spending and imperialism. Otherwise, it will eat all of the resources that we need to have our single-payer health care. We've really got to do this for our children and grandchildren to achieve single-payer health care. So please help me do that.
Brooke, Clarke, same question on healthcare.
I would put a ditto behind what Susan Adams has said and the other people here. We have to have single payer. By the way, if you look at this, League of Women Voters for Mendocino County, it's like a 16-page document with the candidate's position. 2 of the candidates are not for single payer, they're for Obamacare. And so, researching Obamacare, I found another one of these items, and I'll talk more about a different one. This is called teen pregnancy. The U.S. is #1 in teen pregnancy in the industrial world. It's really a shame what's going on. Jocelyn Elder, you can look her up on Wiki, was under Bill Clinton and got fired because she talked honestly about masturbation. So I said, well, what's the current policy? If you go on the Surgeon General's webpage and you search, what you'll find is the policy from 2001. It hasn't been updated. And it's really pathetic what's on there. So this is another example how Democrats and Republicans are the same.
Thank you. William, Courtney? Same question.
I practiced medicine in this district for 30 years. I have an office in Eureka. I'm here once a week. Very concerned. I've got parents with Alzheimer's, so I know that long-term care is essential. We have $15 billion $15 trillion in debt. We're going to face another $600 billion in cuts in domestic this year. So I'd like to promise a lot, but it's going to be a very rough year. We do know that Medicare is an excellent program. Taiwan shaped their single-payer system based on Medicare. And when we go to Medicare, we reduce the insurance cost from 30% to 3%. That 27% gets shifted over to services, and that's what we really need to do, is we need to kind of move some of that money. And given that we just bailed AIG out for trillions of dollars, we have to look at the connections between the insurance group and the medical group and why it's difficult to move in that direction, but I'll work very hard to go there. It's also important, I'm a cannabis physician. 4 conditions cannabis works with. $600 billion covers heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. Significant impact there. That equals the military budget. So as we look for prevention, I'd like to be part of that as well.
Tiffany, Renee? Same question.
So I come with a very different perspective in local government. I have been seeing healthcare cost increases since I've been on local government for the last 4 years. And many of our labor groups are very up in arms. We've lost about 30% of our local services, and we've had pay freezes for several years now, whereas our healthcare premiums are going up, and our employees are having to make the difference in many cases. And I know that that's true for the rest of America as well. You're seeing a lot of your dollars going to healthcare premiums, and one of the ways that I'm suggesting that we deal with this by getting out of the foreign wars, we bring that money home and we put it towards making sure that all public employees are on Medicare along with their families. This will help shore up Medicare, and the money that local governments are currently spending on healthcare can come back to our communities to go back into the services like filling our potholes and making sure that the least among us are cared for. Thank you.
And Larry Fritzlan, same question.
I think you're going to get universal agreement with this up here on the left that we need single payer. It's really a no-brainer. The question is, why don't we have it? And I want to go back 3 years to when Obama was elected. The Democrats had the House and the Senate. Why didn't we get it then? And it comes back to my key point, is that the reason we're not is that the money, the 1%, the special interest, are actually running the show back there. They're buying off our politicians so that they can fund their endless elections. And there's 2 groups that would have stood to lose if we got single payer, and that would be the corporate insurance companies and big lawyers. And those 2 interest groups spend hundreds of millions of dollars giving to the Congress people. And we have to get the money out of politics. I think we rank something like 29th among developed countries. Prevention is much cheaper. If we could cut all of our taxes if we had a single payer health plan, because we end up paying for it eventually. It's just not humane. Thank you.
The next question will go to Stacey Lawson first. And the question is, what is your position on the Klamath Dam removal agreements? Do you support the agreements?
Thank you. So I think the Klamath Dam agreements are actually a very interesting example of many different constituents across the community coming together and finally finding a general consensus around an approach that will both restore the economy, or excuse me, restore the environment, and be a source of jobs. So I'm in support of the removal of the dams. There's an opportunity there for hundreds of jobs to be created in that process, and for water flows and environmental concerns to be met in terms of restoring the flows in our streams and hopefully restoring our fish population. And I've been a supporter and proponent of the process in terms of bringing together literally hundreds of folks and hundreds of groups in that process to come to those agreements and to hopefully move them forward.
Tiffany, Renee, same question.
Thank you. I am in support of the removal of the dams, and this is important for the fish recovery and as well as being able to improve our stream quality. Additionally, the KBRA is an important piece that can really affect our agricultural institutions and as well as our tribal communities to helping them meet their needs. As a Petaluma Grange co-founder, the importance of agriculture in our rural region is very important, and I understand up in the northern part of the district, this is also a very important piece of ensuring food security for this area, given that transportation costs are so high. So ensuring that you have access to good quality food and the water that you need in order to meet those needs will be very important throughout this process. And so I'm very aware of those issues and will continue to work on ensuring that everyone's needs are being met through these processes.
John Lewallen, same question.
The restoration of all of our watersheds. I'm John Lewallen. It's one of my key objectives in this campaign. The Klamath particularly, also the eel and saving the Bay Delta from the peripheral canal. I fully support the removal of the dam. As for exactly how and when to do it, I understand there's disagreement about that, and I don't have the arrogance to choose exactly how and when. However, we do need that free flow of water to restore the salmon fishery. And it's also necessary for what I consider the most valuable thing we have here is our ancient tribal cultures. The Yurok particularly, and several Hoopa, different cultures are actually dependent upon the restoration of our rivers. So the actual cultural survival of cultures we need to teach us how to live in the future depends on this dam removal and the restoration of our watersheds.
Thank you. Andy Caffrey.
I've been an Earth First organizer for over 25 years. If you look at my bumper sticker, you can see the fish on here. I'm with the fish. I'm for the dam removals, but I'm not for this deal. According to Pat Higgins, our local fish ecologist, we don't have to pay $160 million to push water uphill as part of this deal. We do not need to subsidize any of the farmers. We can do this without paying anything for the dam removal. That's what we should do. Mike Thompson's deal is corrupt. He basically blackmailed the environmental groups into going along with him, or else, he said, the Republican way is going to proceed. In other words, no dam removal at all. So I'm going in there to fight for the dams to be removed, fight for the native rights, fight for the hook and line fishermen rights, and fight for the ecology. Bioregionalism is about looking at the ecozone and determining the limits of what that ecozone can provide and living within that. That includes not exporting our water all over the place. Same thing with the eel and going down to Marin and Sonoma. They got free water.
Susan Adams. Same question.
Thank you. Well, the water that's coming down Marin isn't free. However, I do support the removal of the dams. I believe the majority of people are in support of it, and that's the 30,000-foot level. The devil's in the details, however, and how do you do it is just as important as doing it. How do you do it in a way that doesn't cause further destruction to the environment or make the fish worse or address the issues of the different users, including the tribal users of those waterways? And I've had experience in doing this in local government. I was able to resolve a very difficult mining operation where a community wanted a mine closed down and my board said no. And it was a problem because there was silica dust going over the community and houses were shaking like 5.0 earthquakes. And it wasn't a short process. It took me 8 years to get all of those people together. I took a course through UC Davis Extension to learn about mining. And we hammered out a deal that was fair to everybody, all the users. And that's the kind of approach that I take with me.
William Courtney.
The water table is a very serious issue. It's dropping 300, 400, 500 feet. Water is going to become a very precious commodity, and our management of it is going to be essential. We know that people around the world, some walk for 4 hours a day to get enough water to drink. And so it's a resource that we need to look at today, tomorrow, and begin to deal with the special interests and what do you do with the limited resource? One person wants to water plants, one person wants to make electricity, one person wants to move it to an area so they can meet housing requirements. Very difficult thing. In general, I'm an extreme environmentalist and I favor restoration of the water for the salmon. But the cleanliness and availability of water really is going to be a huge issue, and that should be at the heart of our discussions going forward, is how we're going to be able to supply drinking water to the citizens of this country.
Michael Halliwell.
I mentioned that I am a conservationist Republican. The premier conservationist Republican in this general area was Peter Bear, who ran for the state senate on the Reform Coalition platform in 1970, and I also ran for the state senate at the same time on that same Reform Coalition platform. I didn't win. The people in Southern California didn't see anything wrong with stealing your water, and so I sort of lost out and tried to defend the environment on that one. But Peter Bear did win, and he was appointed to the Bay Area Conservation and Development Commission. He also authored a bill to keep the Eel River free-flowing, and Governor Reagan signed that one instead of Randy Collier's bill, which would have been more tilted towards agribusiness. I generally support the long term over the short term, and I believe that we need to have the salmon restored so that we can have the self-sustaining environmental industries up here that will eventually provide more employment in this area.
Larry Fritzlan.
I wrote a book called "We Were the 99% and We're Running for Office, Washington's Worst Nightmare." I think that we have to take the dams down. We have to look at the bigger picture. This river is just part of our biosphere, which includes our air, our water, and our soil. And I propose a constitutional amendment that reads the following: Congress and the executive branch in all their actions will strive to recreate a biosphere like the one that existed when this country was founded. For millions of years, we've been in harmony with nature. In just the last 100 years, we have gone berserk. And we're following it, and we're dirtying it, and we need to restore it. We need to think of the bigger picture, and that's not going to happen when we have big oil and the corporate influence back in Washington. So it is really up to you guys. It's up to us. And to actually stand up for this. And I'm going to encourage you to vote for people that are actually saying the problem. We got some people up here running for office that are not talking about the corruption that exists in Congress.
Brooke, Clarke.
I don't know about the dam issue, so I won't comment on it. But I would like to mention sustainability. I've looked at various environmental issues, and I think the overriding one is sustainability. It encompasses all the others. And I have a little flyer on the table outside. It looks like this. And on the back, number 7 is sustainability. And there's 2 titles of little videos that I think you really should see. One is called "There Is No Tomorrow," and the other is the most important video you'll ever see. The point is that if you have any growth in a finite system, and the Earth is a finite system, you're in for big trouble. And we're rapidly approaching the big trouble part. So I highly recommend that you look at these 2 videos because, you know, like Andy said, we're running out of time. And the key thing is the growth. You can't have any kind of growth.
And Norman Solomon, same question on climate gap movement.
Thank you. I've gotten to hear from, listen to, ask questions of people along the spectrum of views on this. My assessment is that those 4 dams do need to come down, and that the stakeholder process, whatever its flaws, is a very important paradigm for how we need to hear all different views around the table. I do have some concern that we got to get a better scientific assessment of some of the possible impacts of the current scenario so that we go in with eyes open and try to protect the river as much as possible. At the same time, I think we've got to make sure that the small and medium-sized growers and ag interests are respected and they aren't run roughshod by the huge agribusiness concerns. More broadly, this region, our north coast, is under threat. The water being stolen with Peripheral Canal, or now being called Peripheral Tunnel. I've been outspoken against that. And we're seeing some big eyes from the south trying to pull water from the Trinity and really all the waterways in this region down through the Delta to Southern California. We've got to oppose that.
Thank you.
Matthew, would you see if we can get the temperature down in here a little bit? Thanks.
The next question will go to William Courtney. And this question is actually a budget and an economy question. What are the most important things that should be done to improve our nation's economy? And the second part is, how will you balance the continuing costs of military actions with the costs of domestic needs?
As previously mentioned, the best in Senate and Congress attempted to remove $1.2 trillion from the budget. They had such a stalemate that they wouldn't even meet. That's a new definition of gridlock. This year, it's going to be difficult to kind of go favorably in that direction because they've been charged with removing $600 billion from the military budget, and it is going to be a nuclear war in Washington as the majority party attempts to shift that over to domestic. Domestic is going to face a $600 billion cut, which is going to make things worse. And this is the first of $5 trillion that need to be cut. This 1.2 is the low-hanging fruit. So there's a lot of promises that are nice to make as you are a candidate, but we need to look at the really hard and ugly facts. And part of the job is going to be to just identify what is critical and to the best of your ability attempt to hold out for it. To me, one thing that's critical is this whole idea that maybe things are rotten at the top and need to be addressed.
Larry Fritzlan, if you'd like me to repeat the question. Good, okay. What are the most important things that should be done to improve our nation's economy, and how will you balance the continuing costs of military actions with the cost of domestic needs?
Yeah, good question. I'll start with the second one first. Right now, our military spends more money than the rest of the countries in the world combined. Think about that for a second. There is a lot of money available there. Right now, we are funneling money from the taxpayers to special interests. We give the oil company, which is hardly having a problem raising money, we give them $28 billion a year. Why? General Electric made $4.6 billion last year and didn't pay any taxes. Why? We give $14 billion to 6 multinational agricultural corporations to produce food that is causing us to get obese. Why do we do that? The underlying issue is that we have a system that is bankrupt and corrupt. Not bankrupt, it's corrupt. That we have people that are on the take to fund endless elections. We have to come up with a way of getting money out of politics so that we can come up with some pretty straightforward, common sense solutions to these problems.
Stacey Lawson.
So this question has been a central question for our campaign, and I don't hear any of the other candidates really talking about this in depth, and that's why we put together our plan, Making More in America. The kinds of things we need to do to get our economy back on track are to make sure we have a thriving small business landscape, that we're opening up flows of capital. We've given billions of dollars to Wall Street banks, but our local community banks and credit unions aren't lending. The criteria has gotten too strict. We don't have capital flowing into small business right now. We need to promote insourcing and local niche manufacturing. We need to make sure we have the right R&D and tax credits to promote that manufacturing. We need to make sure we have the kinds of high-wage middle-class jobs coming back to our shores. And that will include things like trade enforcement, the WTO agreements, and other types of industrial policy that right now we don't have as a country. We really need to get an industrial policy back in place. And part of the way that we fund some of these investments, like investments in infrastructure, whether that's digital, physical infrastructure to support small business, is by cutting our military budget. We spend 45% of the world's budget on war. We need to rationalize that so we can be investing in our domestic economy.
Clarke. Question on the economy and the budget.
Okay, this is another example where the problems we have today are caused by laws politicians passed a long time ago. For example, 29 crashed, started the Great Depression. That was a wake-up call to Congress, so they passed Glass-Steagall at 32 and 33. There's two different laws. But then in 1980, 1999, 2000, and 2005, these are listed in this little handout I've got, Congress deregulated or tore apart Glass-Steagall, let banks do all kinds of terrible things. I want to make a point that the Dodd-Frank thing that passed in 2005 under Obama continues tearing it apart. Title IX, Section B, 929, makes the SEC immune to FOIA requests. In other words, it makes the SEC's job easier to protect Wall Street from criminal prosecution. And also, number 6 on this sheet is capitalism has failed. Thank you.
Lewallen.
I'm John Lewallen. I'm afraid tragically in this country now, all of the industries that we're having are mostly military production and supporting a suicidal policy of imperialism. They're outsourcing all of our factories. We've got to reverse this trend. As an independent, trying to find unity, I'm asking you to work with me to write a National Peace Conversion Act so that we can convert our entire economy and culture to peacetime production. And that we should have a massive jobs program from the federal government so that people can be employed in making the energy conversion to renewables and building up our infrastructure. We also need general tax reform and a regulation of the financial industry. These are big jobs, and as an independent, I can go back there and do them.
Norman Solomon, same question.
As co-chair of the Healthcare Not Warfare campaign, as well as Commission on a Green New Deal, I'm committed to us taking action when we can make a difference in real time, and I think that's part of the leadership that I offer that's distinct here. I spoke and wrote against the Wall Street bank bailout while it was being debated in Congress. I opposed the invasion of Iraq before it took place and went to Baghdad 3 times with delegations trying to find an alternative to war. I opposed the escalation of the war in Afghanistan while it was underway from the get-go. That's different than waiting until later on, seeing how it turns out, finger to the wind and saying, well, it should have been done this way or that way. Ultimately, with almost $3 billion with a B dollars a day spent on the military, while I go down to the Veterans Resource Center here in Eureka, and the veterans there who serve their country, who have struggled to get their lives together, don't have access to Section 8 housing, have to wait for years. That's wrong, and we need a fundamental reordering of our priorities.
The question goes to Anne Caffrey.
Did you know that the largest organized crime syndicate and terrorism network in world history is the Republican Party? The second largest is the Democratic Party. And what have these people done for us? Did you know we're no longer a middle-class nation? According to the last census, that more than half of us are poor. Our students, more than half of them, have to go home after college. And they go home to pay $1 trillion debt. These people are strangling us. And they're doing it to support what's called military Keynesianism. It's a kind of liberalism where you send money to the military and that creates the jobs. What we need to do is redirect it to the middle class. When you suck the wealth up from 8% to 23% in the top 1%, everything else goes down. So these tax cuts actually cause the economy to collapse. And the framing of the Republicans is being accepted by the Democrats. They're just letting everything go down. So we have to retreat the empire. We have to stop ruling the world. And that's number 3 of my New Green America proposals.
Thank you. The question goes to Tiffany Renee.
Thank you. Again, local government perspective, we've seen so many maintenance projects that have gone deferred. So we really need to focus our dollars at home, bring them back from overseas and the wars that we're spending way too much money on. Bring that money back, put it into a transportation bill that will really assist local governments in improving our bridges and our highways and our roads, as well as a jobs bill that can focus on clean energy. In Sonoma County, I've been working on the Regional Climate Protection Authority, where we've been bringing and encouraging green power to Sonoma County. Currently, Sonoma Clean Power is moving forward through the Board of Supervisors. If this stays in Sonoma County, we'll be bringing $200 to $300 million in local projects that will build renewable energy within the county. This is a program that can go national, and it's something that can really bring jobs to our needed economy. So these are the kinds of things that we need to do to bring money home to our local governments to help people put people back to work. Thank you.
Susan Adams.
We need to get out of a $10 billion a month war. We need to reinvest those dollars into our failing infrastructure. We need to close down some of our military bases. When you can Google map from your own computer and see where your car is and who's visiting your home, we have the technology to be able to keep an eye on the rest of the world. We also need to get rid of and eliminate the oil subsidies. They're making more money in the depth of this recession than ever in their history, and yet the taxpayers are still subsidizing them. Ms. Lawson points out her economic background, but if you really dig deep, you'll see that a lot of those jobs were outsourced, and there was one example where $350,000 in payroll taxes weren't submitted, and investors weren't paid. And I have a different kind of a background. I have a reputation in my county for being a careful steward of the taxpayer dollars. We balance the budget, we have a AAA bond rating, a healthy reserve, and we've renegotiated pensions and salaries with our employees. We are in the best fiscal condition of any of the other counties, and I'll bring that to Washington.
Michael Halliwell.
The Republican Party is not larger than the Democratic Party, and it is not more criminal than the Democratic Party. A good contrast that when Speaker Boehner took over from Nancy Pelosi, he made a reality of the concept of the people's house. He allowed floor votes on crucial issues, especially military pork barrel spending. One of the first of those that came up was on a jet engine. A plane that had two separate engines, supposedly for some advantage, but actually it was just pork barrel. But most of the work was done in Boehner's district. Nevertheless, a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats got rid of this waste. On the other hand, Lynn Woolsey voted against the last round of BRAC reductions in wasteful military spending because she had some in her own district. Looking over at the Senate, they don't even have a budget. So what we need to do is have control, no pork barrel, no earmarks, try to make, we pay for what we use ourselves and don't kick it over to the next generation.
Thank you. We have just enough time for our closing statements, and there have been some really good questions. Candidates, in your closing statements, you may want to address questions that weren't asked, including your relationship to Humboldt County, Eel River, what are your donors, job creation, corporate personhood, voting record, Youth Promise Act, and transparency. There was a lot of good questions. We will go into our closing statement with John Lewallen. Your closing statement, please.
I'm John Lewallen. I love this whole 2nd Congressional District. I call it the North Coast bioregion. It's in my body and blood. If you elect me, that will be a fundamental reform in itself. My wife Barbara and I, we run a tightwad campaign. We're doing the whole thing on less than $10,000, probably considerably less. And also, we'll be going back with no hierarchy and no caucus to join. Only the people working with us for these fundamental reforms that we need. My wife Barbara and I are staying around town after this meeting, and if any of you want to get together with us to talk about the issues or the weather or anything else, we'd love to meet with you. I'd be honored to be chosen as your representative, and it's been a delight to share these issues with you.
Thank you. Norman Solomon?
Well, thanks so much. You know, so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people in Humboldt County have talked to me one-on-one, answered my questions, been so gracious, and I really appreciate that. In a minute, I can't do much more than say Solomon for Congress is our website, and also to say that we're the grassroots leader. Our campaign, Solomon for Congress campaign, 5,300 different donors, more than 1,000 volunteers. We're not relying on big money. We're not running a lot of campaign TV commercials and so forth. I'm disappointed here today that Stacey Lawson didn't take the opportunity to respond to the question I was relaying about why she hasn't voted 2/3 of the time out of 12 crucial elections, including ending up with the presidential one in 2008. And finally, I think that it's very important that we engage from the grassroots. Democracy is really our hope. Democracy is the way that we get beyond all the dysfunction, malfunction, and sometimes privilege to the top that sends us into wars, that creates bigger gaps between rich and poor, and causes more environmental degradation. Finally, I want to invite you to the Labor Temple tonight in Eureka, where former Congressman Dan Hamburg and I will be speaking 6 o'clock tonight, and thanks again.
Stacey Lawson, your closing statement. Thank you.
So I'll take it as a twisted form of flattery that some of the jibes and attacks are coming our way. It's about this time in the race where the career politicos start to do their politicking. And so I invite you to go to our website. We have a page called Fight Back with the Facts, because much of what you have heard here today is not true. I did in fact vote in 2008. I was very active in that cycle, both with the Hillary Clinton campaign, voting in the primary, then with the Obama campaign. I supported both of those candidates and voted in the general as well from overseas. So, and I've shared this with Norman, so he just continues to persist on that. And Susan also knows that her claims are not correct, but please go to our website and take a look. The race we've been running is about fighting for working and middle class families, making sure that everyone has a fair shake, that we're bringing back the kinds of high-wage, middle-class jobs that we need to get our economic recovery going. And the relationship I have with the community here is having grown up in a logging, fishing, and mill town. I grew up in a rural town called Port Angeles, Washington. It has many of the same issues around the natural resource-based economy, the rural setting, and I hope to bring our fighting for jobs here back to our local economy and take care of working families here.
Larry Fritzlan, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Well, I want to challenge Norman Solomon and the negative campaigning. The reality is all of us need to face the fact that why is our politics so irrelevant that half the people don't vote? This, I think, is the real question. And I have a pledge. It says the money out of politics pledge. I agree to accept no money from any corporation, lobby, PAC, or other entity other than a person, a real person. And I agree to accept no more than $100 from an individual. The politicos up here, those that have been collecting money, are going to go back to Washington, and they will spend between 30 and 70% of their time across the street from the Capitol dialing for dollars, which they will give to the party, because that's the way the game plays. I don't have to be part of that. I share with John Lewallen, we have no ties to this, and we can go back there and actually stand up and start making some fundamental change instead of rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. So my name is Larry Fritzlan, and I would like your vote for Congress. Thank you very much.
Susan Adams, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I have deep roots in this district. I am a fourth generational descendant of a Mendocino ranching family, and I have family that live in Carlotta. My nephew last year died on duty as a highway patrol officer in this district serving the community. I also have the experience that money doesn't buy. And if you can go to any of our FEC reports, you can see who our donors are. Most of my donors are real people. I spend a lot of time with my brother fishing on the South Spit, and he fishes, I talk, he pretends to listen about the issues. But what I want to translate is that 60% approval rating for local government and 85% approval rating for nurses. Because people trust that nurses are actually going to go and do what they promise. I want you to visit my website, susanadamsforcongress.com. I'm not just here to get your vote. I make you the promise that if I'm elected, I will actually live here half of the time so that I can engage with you in community. And there is valid documentation from a state lien through the court that what I stated about Stacey was true.
Thank you. William Courtney, your closing statement, please.
John Kennedy was very concerned about transparency, a little concerned about the CIA. Those probably contributed to his early kind of exit out of politics. It's an incredibly ugly state of affairs that we have going. When you have the rest of the world knowing that we are not just corrupt at the top, but we're murderers at the top, that we have raped liberty, that we are losing our civil liberties. The Supreme Court said 5-4, strip search if you don't have an audible bell on your bike. 13 million Americans are arrested and are subject to that. They have offshore detention. If you look at, go to Courtney for Congress if you like, but see End of America by Naomi Wolf. Look at Loose Change, look at Zeitgeist. Look at the architects around the world who say, the plane did not bring those towers down. It was something else, and we need to know who that was. And we need to rescind all of these laws that have removed our civil liberties. If we don't, they're now doing police searches in Tennessee and Texas for seatbelts. It's just going in the wrong direction. We need to stand up for that at this point.
Michael Halliwell, your closing statement.
I am the only Republican candidate in this race who is willing to forthrightly discuss social issues. Traditional marriage is one of the most important social issues, and I strongly supported Proposition 8 because it in fact is a social institution that has been very beneficial to children over the length of civilization. At our last debate, Andy Caffrey talked about an evolution impact statement. Well, traditional marriage is evolution, because this is mate selection that is what has got the humane characteristics that make us able to live together. And by encouraging couples to try to find people that they can live together for generations while raising children makes us a more humane species. And we need to support marriage through things like tax preferences and so forth, not denigrating gay marriage in any sense. They can do whatever they want. I encourage all sorts of long-term relationships, but let's provide the essential financial support for marriage.
Thank you. Tiffany, Renee, your closing statement.
So I joined City Council in 2008 and have seen the challenges in local government through this tough economy. I've been able to balance our budget, and yet there are many challenges that we still face that are not things that we can fix at the local level. They're things that have to be addressed in DC. I have seen the corruption that's taken place at the local level all the way up through to the national level. It's one of the reasons why I think that our current representative is retiring. It's just, it's pretty bad. So I have right-sized my campaign last fall after dialing for dollars for 30 to 40 hours a week, realizing that I would have to do that in DC. I said no, we've got to change that system. We've got to be able to work together and have those conversations in DC, and if we are dialing for dollars, we can't do that. So I'm ready to go to work. I'm a tough worker and a tough fighter, and will be able to have the experience to meet the needs that this district has. Please vote for me, Tiffany Renee, for Congress.com.
Thank you. Brooke, Clarke, your closing statement.
Again, my webpage is n2partygovernment.com. I'm an independent. And people said, well, if I vote for an independent, am I throwing my vote away? And the answer is no, it's the other way around. If you vote Republican or Democrat, you're throwing your vote away, unless you want to make a difference on sex issues, then your vote might count for something. But if you're concerned about war, the economy, sustainability, justice, the environment, and you vote Republican and Democrat, there's a word for it. And they say doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a change is insanity. So I've been insane for a lot of years. So I had a wake-up call last year. I just might mention one other thing, and that's the prisons. Back in the late 80s, there was a crime wave, and a bunch of laws were passed by politicians trying to stop it, and they made a mistake. The book Freakonomics talks about this. And what happened is we've got tough on crime, 3 strikes, you're out, whatever. The U.S. is now the #1 country in the world for prisons.
Thank you. And Andy Caffrey, your closing statement, please.
Anybody here freaked out about the climate crisis, the ecological meltdown, the collapse of the economy, or the destruction of our democracy? Well, I am. The other candidates here are acting as if there is no climate crisis. I've come up with a new meme. I came up with climate crisis, in fact. It's called green climate deniers, where they don't deny that there's a climate crisis, but their actions and their politics don't fit. That's what we're in right now. If you can't answer the question, how much do we have to reduce our fossil fuel emissions and how fast to avert the breakup of Greenland's ice sheet, where half of it is now sitting on water, then I would suggest you need to do some more homework if you're going to take care of your kids, because we're destroying our kids' future. There are no jobs on a dead planet. If you have a 4-pack-a-day cigarette habit and you're 40 years old, you want to know if you have to cut back 4 packs a day or 4 cigarettes a day. These people can't tell you how much we have to do it. So I consider myself the climate doctor. And also, the corporatists aren't going to do it. Do you think another Dan Hamburg, Lynn Woolsey is going to do the job? What are they going to do one more in Congress? They're not going to do the job. It'll be terminal.
Thank you for attending today's candidate forum. I've taken you a couple minutes over, so it sounds like I have to donate to the library. The League of Women Voters of Humboldt County's website for more nonpartisan voting information, lwdhc.org. Thank you.
Nice to know you. So here is the book. This one is most appropriate in our election cycle, Julius Caesar. Known for his support of the Republican way, meaning, you know, not Republican Democrat, Republic. Republic, very good, thank you. Anyway, we're trying to sign this. We'll put this in the library in your honor. Thank you very much. well, we ran a little bit long today, but I think it was definitely worth it. Getting a look at the candidates, I think it was very enlightening. Charles, Douglas, I want to thank you for filming today.
And Gabrielle Fellows.
Voters, I would like to thank you for moderating and setting up this great event. And Matthew Owen, I don't know how you do it, but every week you come up with a great program idea. So thank you very much.
Next weekend.
Next week, we've got the, was it First District?
First District Supervisor.
County Supervisors, so please be here for that. Hank Ingham will be your host that week, and then Wilkie the week after, where we do the honor flight, and then we're dark for Memorial Day. So, don't forget to see somebody about backpacks for kids. If you have tickets or something you'd like to donate, let's try to get this fundraiser off to a good start on May 20th, and help support these kids. Again, thank you all for coming today. On behalf of Eureka Rotary, we appreciate it, and we are adjourned.